Welcome to Jen's Daily Dish. Today we're going to be making spinach-filled Lebanese flatbreads, or as I like to call them, empanadas. I'm calling them empanadas because ultimately this type of flatbread, which is folded up with a filling, is the same as an empanada, is the same as a pierogi, is the same as dumplings. Every country has their own variety of a hot pocket, and that's what we're making today, and it's really yummy. As a first-time baker, if I can make this, you can make this too. Give it a try. Let's get started. We have 3½ cups of all-purpose flour in the bowl. This is where it gets a little bit more complicated because the next ingredient on the recipe calls for 1 3/4 cup of pastry flour. Pastry flour? Who has pastry flour? I don't have pastry flour. So I saw someone commented on the King Arthur blog where this recipe is from, that they had added 2/3 cup of 00 flour, which is very elastic and good for pizza, along with 1/3 cup of whole wheat flour. Those are gonna go in. Now this is not like pastry flour, but I'll have a separate episode which talks about proteins and flours and why they're all so different and what they do. All I can tell you is this works. In goes 2/3 cup, 00 flour, 1/3 whole wheat. 2 1/4 teaspoons yeast, 1 1/4 teaspoon salt, 1 tablespoon olive oil, 1 tablespoon sugar, 1 1/3 cups water. To my favorite kitchen device, the mixer. Mix until smooth. Don't forget to push down the ingredients. You'll notice that it's not fully coming together. It's still a little bit shaggy. There are pieces that have come together and others that haven't. It may be due to the humidity level in the house, so I'm gonna go ahead and add just a little bit of water. Don't add more than a tablespoon at a time, and see how it does. It's come together pretty nicely, so now what we're gonna do is let it sit out for an hour covered with plastic wrap, and we'll be back. Here are the ingredients that are going to go into these yummy Lebanese flatbread / empanada / hot pockets. We have here fresh spinach, which we're gonna put in the microwave. It's gonna wilt down and we're gonna get all the olive oil out. We've got our onion here. It calls for only 3/4 cup, but I'm just gonna add the whole thing in because it's yummy. Feta cheese is going to go in, and I have some leftover tomatoes. You can put whatever you want in these. If you want to add ground turkey or ground beef, feel free. If you want to add something sweet in there, make it a chocolate version, you can do that too. This dough is very resilient and it really does work out very well. So I recommend filling it with whatever you like. Now that the spinach, a full bag, is out of the microwave for 1 minute and 30 seconds, it's very wilted. We're gonna chop it up and then we're gonna start squeezing all the water out of it as much as we possibly can. This is a very big onion, so I'm only going to use half of it, which really is closer to the 3/4 cup the recipe calls for. Because I didn't have big tomatoes, I had to use the baby ones, and I realized because the recipe calls for them to be seeded, I've encountered a problem, but I'm going to solve for it. I'm going to chop up the seeded tomatoes. Now we'll add them to the bowl with the onions. In goes the spinach. Crumble up the feta first. This is 5 ounces of feta. The recipe calls for only 2 ounces, but I like cheese, so we're adding more. In goes the feta. Adding in a tablespoon of lemon juice, because I followed the directions, and 1/4 cup of olive oil. Mix it together, breaking up the spinach. I've gotten it to a good place. I'm gonna cover it and let it sit overnight in the refrigerator. Halt, wait, stop. I totally messed up. I didn't follow my cardinal rule, so I hope you do instead. I did not read the directions. I was supposed to take the spinach and put it in a bowl in the sink with a little bit of salt and rub it together. It's basically kind of brining the salt a little bit. Wait an hour and then rinse it under cold water. And then you squeeze it out and you get rid of all the excess water, etc. I didn't do that. What did I do? I quickly rushed ahead. I microwaved it, I chopped it up, squeezed out all the water, and I put it in the bowl. This is gonna be proof number one to you guys. If I make this work, you can too. It doesn't have to be perfect. This really, really won't be. Again, I'd be kicked off double time off that baking show, but it'll work out and it's going to be yummy. It's been an hour. Let's take a look at the dough. You can see it's puffed up. Now what we're gonna do is take out the dough and divide it into multiple little balls of dough. I'm gonna knead it just a little bit just to get it even more cohesive. The recipe calls for this to be made into 2.5 ounce balls or 14 pieces. I don't have a scale. I should ask Amazon for that, but I don't have one yet. So when you're cutting something into 14 pieces, the first half cut you would make 7 and 7, right? 7 and 7 equals 14. And then you're left with a 7, and you've got an odd number. So you have to get the portions just right, which I am not good at. So I'm gonna cut this into 16 pieces instead of the 14 because 16 goes down to 8, goes down to 4, goes down to 2, and then 1 comes out much nicer. The first cut. If you notice, some of the pieces are a little bit bigger than others, so I'm just gonna pick off a little bit from some pieces and put it on the others and start making the balls. I tuck the dough underneath just to make a slightly nicer ball so I don't have to work on it too much. And I just sort of pat it around in my hands. I make the ball and put it on the tray. We have our 16 balls ready to be refrigerated overnight, and we'll make our empanadas tomorrow. The dough and filling has sat overnight, so now the first thing you want to do before you get started is to turn on the oven to 500 degrees. Again, keep in mind how your oven heats, if it's on the cool side or the hot side. The recipe asks for a pizza stone in the top third of the oven. If you don't have a pizza stone, it's going to be just fine. I'm just going to put the cookie sheet on top of the pizza stone, but let this warm up. All right, now let's start the fun part. You're going to take one of the dough balls. We're going to lightly dust this. I don't really need to. It's a silicone mat. I love this mat by Green Rain because it helps me with all my measurements. So you take your one piece of dough and we're going to work to make it a 5-inch round. The first thing I like to do is I just start by pressing it down, just to sort of get it closer to where I need it to be. Now that we've gotten it to a pretty nice looking 5-inch round, we're gonna go ahead and put a 1/4 cup of the filling in it. And I like to overfill this little scooper just because it makes it easier. So put that in. And this is where you have to work fast because the filling will begin to get warm and more liquidy. I like to fold these in a more traditional empanada way. But the first thing, and the trick is, pinch the bottom corners first. Because when the filling starts to warm up, the more you do, you will have caught it and captured it inside the dough. So pinch the rest of the border. And I like to fold it this way, but I will show you another fold. So I'm pulling up with my thumb and then over, up and over, up and over, up and over. There you go. The first one. The technique that the recipe actually calls for is to fold over one of the flaps like that, and then fold the other one up like this, and to fold the other one up like this. I already think I'm gonna have problems doing it this way, and that's probably not even the right way, and then you're supposed to put it seam side down like that. I think it looks prettier the way that I've been doing it, so I'm gonna continue doing it that way. All right, we've got the first pan of empanadas ready to go. So now what we're gonna do is lightly brush olive oil on them. Into the oven they go for about 8 minutes. Keep an eye on them. I'm gonna set the timer for 7 minutes so that I can take a look. They should be medium brown. Oh, they look done and are sizzling because some of them opened up. And they are perfect golden brown right now. And so what I'm going to do is move them over to the cooling cookie sheet and let them cool there, and then we're gonna take a bite. I've let them cool for just a little bit, a few minutes or so, and I am too tempted. I'm gonna dive in right now. I'm gonna cut it open. Can you hear that? It's crunchy. Oh, look at that. Look how beautiful that is. It's crusty on the outside, but soft in the inside with the filling. It's really good. You have the crunchiness of the exterior, but it's soft on the inside. And then between the spinach and the feta and the onions and the tomatoes, it all kind of comes together really well, and it is delicious. While ordinarily this would be a baking fail, this was a huge baking success. I may not win any baking competition, but if I can do this, you can do this too. With all the mistakes that I made throughout, it still made a beautiful looking spinach-filled Lebanese flatbread / hot pocket / empanada / any other filled dough that you can think of. Don't miss future episodes, which include how to make French bread in just a few hours, oatmeal chocolate chip bars, which are almost kind of healthy, and so much more. Don't forget to subscribe and turn on your notifications so you'll be sure not to miss an episode. Hola, bienvenidos a Jen's Daily Dish. Hoy vamos a cocinar. Hoy vamos. And great. No. Si yo puedo hacerlo, tú puedes hacerlo también. En perfecto. Oh boy, estoy olvidando mi español otra vez. ¿Qué está pasando? And they're nice and cold, and now what we're gonna do, I'm such a mess today. Okay.